Okay, good morning.
Good morning. You're waiting for me. Thank you.
Yes. How to discover your personal mission in life is the title. So let's begin with where we got to begin. I think of all my talks and all the themes possible to speak about, this is probably the most important of them all. Because everything begins with why are we here? You know, the big $1 million question. And it's almost absurd to think about it, that most people on earth have no clue. Not only that, even though they may ask the question, they may never find an answer. Why is it absurd? Because everything in our lives, common sense dictates, needs purpose. You know, let's just take the most classic example. Business 101. Can a business exist, let alone survive, without a mission statement? The answer is absolutely no, because what is it doing? When you wake up in the morning, let's say you have a certain amount of capital, how are you going to spend it? What are you focusing on? What are your goals? Are they measurable? Are you succeeding? Are you failing? I mean, nothing can move without the goal. Or you set out on a trip. So, of course, you can take what do they call them, a leisure trip, what they call trips that go nowhere. But generally a trip, you know, okay, I want to reach somewhere. Mystery trip, magical mystery trips. So you go on a trip, you make a destination. We came from New York on Thursday here. You put it into GPS. Once upon a time there was no GPS, so you map it out somewhere or other, and then you figure out how to get from here to there. Tell me, I'd like to challenge anyone to ask to present anything in life that's worth talking about that does not have some, call it a mission, an objective, a goal, a destination. It does not exist if you're going to be efficient. And if one does not have a mission, let's say in businesses that actually do have mission statements, you need someone that's always minding the wheel. Someone is minding the store, someone is checking it out. Because it's so easy to waver. There are great big companies that have failed because either the mission became unclear to the people involved, or it was never clear in the first place, or things have changed. But you have a company, even with one person, if it's a one-person business, that individual who's running the show, who's running the store, minding the store, needs to know where you want to, what you want to achieve. Are you selling shoes or are you selling pancakes? No, I just brought pancakes to my grandchildren. That's why I came up with that example. You know, and I put on shoes to one of my other grandchildren. So that's that. So there's nothing in life. There's simply nothing in life that does not function without some purpose. And purpose dictates mission, purpose, objective, goals. I'm just using different words. Really creates the efficiency. So what happens when a company, for example, is dealing with, I remember I was reading somewhere that one of the guys at Avis Rent-A-Car came to the CEO. He says he has a great idea that there's going to be some type of carnival. They have thousands and thousands of people there, and let's produce balloons that say Avis. So the CEO tells him, look behind me. What does it say? The mission of Avis is to rent cars. Tell me how these balloons are going to rent cars. Now, of course, the idea is to expose Avis, but you're going to a carnival where it's mostly children and parents that probably not thinking about car rentals. So so the question is always asked by the sharp leader, well, how is this fulfilling our objective? And sometimes you risk it, you try something, and you realize it doesn't. But that objective is what keeps. If you want to think of it like a visual analogy, think of it of a hub and a wheel. The hub, the center, is what grounds it all, and the spokes are the different projects that any company may take on. So Google's mission statement is, just using a good example, to organize all the information of the world and make it readily accessible. I don't know if it's word for word, but that's the gist of it. There are 80,000 employees at Google. It makes billions of dollars in revenue. You look today, Google has a lot of different different projects. And you say to yourself, and look, there's not one project that does not fulfill their mission. So they began with search, basic search. But everything else ends up being another way of making information accessible. So even Google, let's say Google Maps, that's information, making it accessible to people who want to travel. And there are projects, you'll see they began, and then they dropped. Because either it did not fulfill the core mission, or the project wasn't working the way they wanted it to work. But without the mission, you have nothing to work with. Teach a person music. Teach someone, a student, art. Teach them how to play tennis. They need to know, what are we trying to achieve? So you say, okay, in this semester, we're going to learn how to do ABC. And now we'll begin from step 1. And we're going to get from step 1 to step 2, step 3, step 4. Take away that objective, the goal, the whole thing goes haywire. When NASA sent the first time humans went to outer space, the early 60s, what was it? Before they landed on the moon. So, this was the first time that humans were experiencing zero gravity or low gravity, and they wanted to try many different experiments. One of the experiments they actually sent with the first astronauts was a plant. A plant that you grow on a windowsill or wherever. And they wanted to see what will happen to the plant when it's subject to no gravity or almost no gravity. And what happened was, lo and behold, when they came back to Earth, the plant grew roots in all 4 directions. It no longer looked like a plant. Like a plant, we know the roots grow down, they seek out water, and then the top of the plant is whatever it is, whether it's cactus or it's whatever. What are the common plants out there? I don't even know the name. Lily, irises. Here, roots were growing all over, and they realized why. Once the plant was in outer space, it no longer had a center of gravity, never had a center of focus. Here, the plant's on the ground, so the roots go seeking water. But if there's no water, there's no hub, so to speak, no center, where do you grow? So they grow all directions. It's exactly what happens to any company that has no mission. What you'll start seeing is fragmentation. Bunch of projects happening. They may be interesting projects, but they start veering off from the center. Another example that I heard from the Chassid Mendel Futterfass. He was a Hasidic Jew in Russia, was arrested for helping other Jews escape the Soviet Union under Stalin. He ended up in Siberia. Now, who else was in Siberia? You can imagine. All the intelligentsia were in Siberia because the communists were terrified and intimidated by anyone that was a thinker. So they had musicians there, and you had poets and writers and you name it, scientists. Anyone that thought a little independently was there. So it was very stimulating, actually, because you're around very high-quality people, nonconformists. So it was one of the ways that he kept it alive, meaning he kept the spirit alive, was by having these conversations, and he always learned the Hasidic culture that everything has a lesson in life. So everything he heard from these people, he learned lessons from. And they would have, from time to time, because there was so much talent, they would have like these little displays that people would show off their talent. So one day they had the type of, a circus. So they had jugglers, and they had this, and there was one person who was a tightrope walker. And he had a conversation with this tightrope walker. And, tightrope walking is interesting. Most of us think the secret is balance, right? To walk on a wire and from a high height, and you have to develop balance, which of course is important. But I was just talking to the tightrope walker. He said to him, so what's the secret of tightrope walking? And it's interesting what he answered. He says the secret is focus, but not focus your feet on the wire, but focus at a destination at the end where you want to reach. And you just create a beeline, straight line to your destination. And that's what keeps you balanced. Now, obviously, you need to master the balance, but that is the key. And then the tightrope walker said to Rabbi Mendel, he said to him, so what do you think is the most difficult part of tightrope walking? So most people would say when you're right in the middle, because you're like not near the beginning, not near the end, and you're like completely vulnerable, and if there's no net below, it's dangerous. He says, no, the hardest part is when you reach the edge and you have to turn. Because when you turn, you have to lose sight of your destination and create a new focal point as you turn around. That's the time it's most difficult to keep balance. So there you have it, just another example of how a focal point, which is another word for destination or mission or goal, objective, everywhere in life. And again, I challenge anyone to come up with something that's working that doesn't have some type of objective. Yet when it comes to maybe the biggest thing of life of all, our personal lives, ask yourself, ask anyone you meet and say, what is your mission statement? What is your mission? Now, I need to immediately, obviously, eliminate the obvious answers that everyone answers, and I've tested this with, I must say, thousands of people. So most people answer without thinking, to be happy. Some will say to be successful, make money. Some will add to build healthy families. Now, there's nothing wrong with those three objectives, but they don't qualify as missions. Because, for example, in company, in business terms, if a company said our mission statement is to be happy, or to make money, or to build a happy employee family, those are not mission statements. They're good, they're necessary for a healthy culture. But every company needs to make money. And everyone wants to be happy, and everyone wants to be productive. That's not a mission. That's like a mission, something, this is the key, something unique to this company or entity, and short and simple, but not generic and vague. Has to be what's the word I want to use? Actionable, something you can do. So let's go back to Google's mission statement, and I'll mention a few others. To organize all the information in the world and make it readily accessible. Everyone understands exactly what that means. We have a tremendous amount of information today. And why do you use Google? Very simple. You're searching for something you're looking for. And had they not produced results 90%, 88% of the time that you are looking for, they would have failed. That's why they rose. Their algorithms, their flexibility, their ability to comb everything in information. Are they perfect? No. So the mission is very clear. It's short. It's not to be happy, and it's not generic. It's unique to them. Can another company come up with that mission and do it better? By all means. Then you have your competition. Google's your competition. If you can feel you can beat them at it, most will not do that. They're not going to go find the same mission, because if someone's doing it well, you're really now dealing also with being the one who came first is usually going to be the one that dominates as long as they're successful. So you'd be wise to probably find a different mission. Like you can say, my mission is to a search engine that finds the best discount airfare. So yes, there you may be successful, that niche, because Google's general search may not be so specific to that, and you'll be able to maybe write algorithms and figure out a way to provide. But again, you've defined a new mission statement with very clear focus. Microsoft's mission statement, I don't know if it is still today, I think it is. It was a computer in every home and in every office. You never think of that way, right? Because Microsoft produces software. Yeah, but for software to be successful and to be indispensable, basically, it's software that every office and home is going to use. So therefore, they create accounting software, and they create time management software, and they create the interface, obviously the desktop, the operating system software, to make it easy for every person to use a computer. With the objective very clearly. If they're successful, then every home and every office will have a computer because everyone can use it. If they were not successful and no one else came up with such software, computers would be really something only for geeks and people who, as it was in the early, in its infancy. It wasn't easy to use. They came up with the first user interface, user-friendly interface, basically. Plenty of competition, but it's a mission. I think Starbucks' mission is something like, also surprising, something like building healthier communities one cup at a time. I'm not kidding you, look it up. Now you think, 1 second, don't they sell coffee? Is that their thing? But it's never the coffee. The coffee is the product. But what do they want to accomplish? They want to accomplish that you should want to walk in there and feel comfortable. That's why they have places you sit. You could say, why don't they just have coffee lines and that's it? Why could you hang out there all day and sleep on the couch? Why would they do that? Because they want to create the environment that you feel comfortable in Starbucks. That is, and they were ready to, and people ready to pay $2 more a cup because of that. Not for the actual quality of the coffee. Obviously, they try to keep a quality going, quality control, and so on. But that's their mission. And I can go on and on. I've studied many mission statements, and I see there's always the common denominator, what we're saying here. And they're actually entire books. There are business gurus that Explain exactly what defines a mission. It has to be short, sweet, and doable, and everyone understands it, but unique. So saying you're happy, make money, have a happy and a good family are all great things, but they're not mission statements. So if someone came to you and said the following: I'd like you to invest in my company, and I want $5,000. Let's not even. You say, okay, what does your company do or want to do? You say it's we need to have a few hours of conversation because it's a very elaborate and complex mission. Or you'll say, I have many different missions and I'm looking for, trying to figure it out still. Or we don't have a mission. When we retire, we'll develop one. Tell me, how much money would you invest in such a company? Without even blinking. Of course, zero, because there's nothing to invest in. Come back to me when you have something that that is doable, has an objective, has some goal. Why am I giving these weird examples, these like almost absurd examples, is because it's exactly what most people say. I've talked to many intelligent people who run businesses and know exactly what a mission statement is, and I say, so tell me, what's your personal mission statement in life? They'll say, I'm too busy with my job right now. When things calm down and relax, that's when I'll develop it. Or they'll say, do you have a few months and I'll get to all the complexities of my mission, or I have a bunch of options. They'll answer exactly what no business would ever answer to try to get a penny investment. Why is that the case? How is it possible that everything in life, and we're intelligent people, everything has objectives? There's no such thing as you say, why are we doing this? Because we're trying to reach a certain goal. Now, maybe a crazy cockamamie idea, but there is some goal. So how is it possible on a personal level we don't have that type of, when we ask that question? The answer is very simple. No one ever told us to. You grow up in your home. You ever hear that your parents say to you, we're here to help teach you what the mission of your life is. And that every day, whatever you do is going toward that direction. That's not what we're told. We're sent to school. School teaches us. If it's a good school, you get a lot of information, a lot of data. Hopefully, it sharpens your mind. You develop methodologies. You develop ways of doing things. But mostly, it's focused at best that you can go out and build a career and make money. That's at best. You don't have the focus. Even if you have, once in a while, someone will bring up the question, the bigger existential question, why are we here? It's probably relegated to a philosophy course. That's what philosophers ask, which you can rest assured immediately becomes this dry, abstract thing. Oh, philosophers ask why we're here. When the truth is, it should be every child should be aware of why they're here. So once you don't have that in the lexicon in our upbringing, it becomes very obvious. You grow up, you graduate, you go out there, you need to make a living, make ends meet, say you build a family, life takes over. And you've never asked the real question of, where does it all begin? What's my bigger objective? What's the objective of the money I make from my job? What happens then? Okay, so most people say that I have a lot of money, I can do things. I can travel where I want, I can enjoy life, and so on. Never having to really deal with the question of the mission. Okay, so then here's the next question. If that's the case, that a mission is so vital to a company and to an entity and to any type of enterprise, and if you don't have one, the company will fail. It will go bankrupt. Because at some point, what will happen if you're doing a bunch of projects and it's not going towards some goal, or the goal is not being met? You know, there's a point where you're going to run out of money, and you're going to run out of resources. Even if you have a lot of resources, at some point, there's going to be a lot of money being lost. Now, some people may not care. If they have enough money, they can just say, what do I care? It's just a hobby. But most do care. And most importantly, it's inefficient. And inefficient will lead to failure. So why is it then when we, who don't necessarily have a mission statement of that caliber, what happens to us? Why don't we fail? This is a big question. The question is, maybe you are failing, and you don't know it. You know, you're numbing yourself or distracting yourself in other types of what you call success. I don't mean you, anybody in this room. I mean, I'm talking the metaphorical you, and maybe life is not really working as it should be. And no one wants to accept that. That's number one. Number two, there are things that explode and there are things that implode. In a company, it's going to explode because you have working with other people. You have to pay your bills. And one day the debtors and your vendors and your clients are going to come knocking at the door when wanting to be paid. So that is going to make a demand of accountability. And accountability is going to force you to make a decision what to do. So it's almost like built in that you're going to have to figure out to create success or close down. In our personal lives, who are we accountable to? There's no one knocking on the door if you're not fulfilling any mission. No one's coming to you and saying, you owe me money or something else. The only one that really is being hurt is yourself. So we implode. So if you ask yourself a question, why is it that people go through the middle-age blues? And today middle-age has gone very young. Teenagers go through middle-age blues already. Even though life expectancy is going up. And or you're going through deep forms of anxiety or other type of psychological issues, and just look at the $1 trillion therapy industry, you start saying, what's the root of it all? What's the root of it all? So why wasn't there so much therapy 100 years ago? So some people said because they didn't have the sophisticated psychology to deal with issues. Yeah, there's many. I don't believe that's the answer. When you have a lot of free time and you have a lot of leisure, you're generally going to have more problems, because if you're sitting 8 hours a day in a field sweating, not sitting, struggling and working hard, the sweat of your brow trying to get a sack of potatoes or other produce to be able to have dinner, you don't have time really to talk about, I have anxiety because I don't know what to do, I'm bored. You're not very bored. And you come home, you're exhausted, and so on. Adam Rickover, if you remember Admiral Adam Rickover, you've heard of him? He was a 4-star admiral. In the Navy, it's 4 stars is the highest level, like a 5-star in the Army. So he escaped the Holocaust. I think he came right out from Europe right before Hitler came to power. He was in Poland. He was a Jew, of course, and he came and he rose in the ranks and became what they call the father of the nuclear navy, because he turned the Navy into a whole real force. Anyway, he gave a talk in 1955, and I find fascinating what he said. In 1955. And he gave a talk, he compared 1855 to 1955, the change, which is really the Industrial Revolution, which is generally 1840, but that period, 1855 to 1955. And he said this statistic, that approximately 92% of energy in the world in 1855 was generated by human labor. And in 1955, 92% generated by machines. In 100 years. What are the consequences of that and implications? As follows. 2 things. Wealth exploded to obscene heights, because now, as much as you made in 1855 was still human labor. Now if you control the machines, you can create so much more energy, and therefore the wealth, that's why it went through the roof, for those that had that power, had that control. And the second thing, which is what I want to really focus on, is the leisure. What did we do with all these hours? Human beings were working in the fields, or wherever we were working. It was agricultural society, an agrarian society. So what happened with all the time that was freed? You no longer have to sit. You could press a button, or you could pay someone else to do it for you, etc. So basically the birth of what we call leisure. Now he doesn't really focus on that, but it struck me, because we live in a world, we take it for granted. We have a lot of free time. Now, I know everyone will say I don't have too much time, I'm busy, but it's not that simple. You start wondering how many hours a day you waste, let's say, on little video games or other things. Most people don't want to talk about it, because we find out how much you waste, you realize you're like wasting your life away. The bottom line, what I'm leading to, is that what we end up happening without a mission is we end up having fragmentation of a highest order. Because you start getting involved in things. Just to give an example, I use this example in Toward a Meaningful Life. Make a list of, whenever you have a chance, take any day, a random day in the week, and make a list from the morning till night what you did. Literally what you did that day. From the moment you got up, press the snooze button, whatever it is, whatever your regimen is. Got up, exercised, showered, breakfast, coffee, commuted, went to work, coffee break, conversation. You'll come up with around 100, 150 items. Everything from tying your shoelaces to the most important things. And then, of course, your nightly regimen, whatever it may be. You'll come away and then try to create a thread that connects these things you did. And tell me how many different threads you're going to have to create. Most of them have no connection one to the next. Now you'll say, what's the big thing? So what? We do many things. We multitask, as they say. It's no big thing one day. but accumulates day after day, and week after week, and month after month, and year after year, and decade after decade, millennium and century after century, and then millenniums. We went over from 2000, last millennium to this millennium, and it accumulates to have millions of fragments in your life. And think about fragments. All of us, if nature abhors fragmentation, we also do. Look at children. Give little children objects of different shapes. You'll see they're always trying to fit them into each other. We gravitate toward order. And even the disorganized among us, our disorganization is also some form of order. I know people who you go to their desk, completely clean, there's one object on the desk, they're doing one thing at a time, one task at a time. There are people who have desks like this. And you say to them, how could you do this work? So I knew a person like this. He was my father. Okay? And I once said, how could you manage your papers like all the way till the ceiling? He says, tell me what you're looking for. And I told him. And he knew exactly where it was. He pulled it right out. Of course, with the thing almost toppled over, but he had mastered that art too. So he didn't see himself as disorganized. This was his order. Now, a real order, maybe not. But my point is that human beings, you come into your home and everything is disheveled, and when things are supposed to be here are here, you always get disoriented. We gravitate towards a form of unity. So what happens psychologically when fragmentation accumulates to the point where there are millions of things you're doing? So you don't feel it. As I said before, it implodes, it doesn't explode. But it cannot create a peaceful psyche, that's for sure. You become restless. You become restless, I mean in an unhealthy way. I don't mean the healthy angst. Because you suddenly have all these things going on, and they become, you don't even know where to begin to make order. So all that I've been saying till now has been making the case why a mission statement is not optional. It's absolutely necessary. And but nevertheless, we can get away with it because we're not accountable, and we do not feel the effects of it. If you knew the effects of not having a focused mission, and you felt and saw it in your life, no way you would survive. No way you would allow that to continue. So now I'm going to focus, of course. So what do we do to change that? But the reason I made this such a long argument about it, why didn't I just go right into it? I'll tell you why. I used to do that when I did these workshops on this topic, and I was never successful. Why? Because as much as I talked about what a mission is, most people did not know the importance of it, and they left the room going right back to their old habits. And it was nice ideas, and I asked people, I said, so anything? No, yeah, but I'm busy. I'm so busy, I don't even have time to start what you suggested. So if you don't make a case of the importance of it, almost anything you suggest is not going to be integrated into your life because you are busy. Whether it's real busy or not real busy doesn't really matter. It's your habit. It's your pattern, and it's very hard to break patterns. Like, what do you do tomorrow morning that's going to be different? And tomorrow morning, here we are on Pesach vacation or whatever you want to call it. When you get back to work, in the morning you have to go to work, you have to send children to school, you have this obligations, those obligations. It's not that easy to just fit in and say, I forgot one thing, I got to fit in my mission statement. That one with the time management course just captures the point so well. A guy was giving a time management course and he did a demonstration. He brought an empty aquarium into the classroom with a few sacks. Sack number 1 was big boulders. He stuck the big boulders into the aquarium. Okay. He asked the class, is this aquarium full? Some said yes, most said no. Sack number 2 were small pebbles. He poured them in, and obviously they filled up all the spaces that the big boulders didn't. Is it full? Sack number 3, fine gravel, sand, which of course filled every nook and cranny and crevice that the small pebbles didn't cover. Is it full? There was one more sack, so I guess some people realized they didn't know why it's not full, because at this point, where there's no room for anything else, it was pitchers of water. Now water is even finer than gravel. So you poured the water in till it spilled over, and that is it. Is it full now? Yes. What else can you put in? The water, the sand, the little pebbles, the big boulders, the stones. What's the lesson from this class, he asked. So the smart Alex in the class knew it's a time management class. The answer is very simple, they said. That as much as you think your day is full, you could always stick something else in. Which is what most people think intuitively they think is the right way to manage your time, to realize you could always do more. He said, no, that's not the lesson. The lesson is, if you don't get the boulders in first, you're never going to get them in. If you began with the water, and then the fine sand, and then the little pebbles, you're never going to get the boulders in. There's no room for them. He said the boulders are your values, are the foundations of your life. Not what you do, not what you keep busy with, but these are the foundations. If you don't get those pillars in, like the foundations of a building, you can't build a foundation after you build a building. It doesn't work that way. Foundation's under the ground, you don't see it, and it's not there, the building can't stand. But you can't build the beautiful floors that you live in if you don't have the foundation. It's an unbelievable lesson in very simple terms. A mission statement is exactly that. It's the beginning of everything. It's sad that most people on earth do not even know that. They don't even know it. Now, this doesn't mean that when you hear it doesn't resonate, and then you think to yourself, and I want to make this clear, this doesn't mean if you have not have a mission until this point in your life, you wasted your life. God forbid. I am sure everybody in this room, I'm sure many millions of people doing great things. Charitable acts, bringing up beautiful families, the sacrifices we make for others, different acts of nobility. Not denying that, because people have a good nature or people gravitate toward doing good. Beautiful. But how much more could you be more efficient had you really been focused toward a mission? Then it wouldn't just been random acts here and there. It would have been driven, and everything you do is driven by that hub, that's driven by that focus. Just like Starbucks and Microsoft and Google that I mentioned, there it's in business terms, but everything is focused toward there. Now it's interesting, Google allows its employees, I think 20% of their time to develop their own projects. And paid, they're paid. Is it 20%?
They don't do that as much anymore.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. But they did at the time. And I was reading up by saying, why would they do that? Now they're a big company, they're making a lot of money, and it definitely makes their employees happy to do that. But how did it fit their core mission? Besides making these people happy, because they figured that if they do projects, some of them are going to come back and become those that help the core mission of Google. And they did. I think one of those projects was Gmail, as a matter of fact. Gmail was not the first to Google product. Search was. But Gmail, look how popular it is. And Gmail, I think, was an outgrowth. I may be wrong, but I'm almost sure of one of these engineers coming up with an idea. Same thing, I believe, Google, what's it called, Drive. The cloud memory and stuff like that. Because for Google, it ends up being part of fulfilling their mission. So it doesn't mean a mission is a rigid thing that doesn't allow for many different ways to achieve it. But it's still a very defined and short, as I said, and very clear mission that nobody can misunderstand. Everybody understands what it means to make information, gathering, organizing information and making it accessible. Everyone understands that. So let's now go, the second part I want to talk about is, what do you do? How do you develop a mission? And I'll speak on two tracks a bit. First, I want to speak because everybody here, I assume is not everyone literally, but many of you are parents or grandparents. So there's one thing is, how do we infuse it in our children from the youngest age? Because remember, the younger someone begins, the more successful they'll be at it. There's no reason we can't do that immediately. And then there's ourselves. Wherever we are in our lives, which we most likely have a job, you have plenty of responsibilities, and how do you integrate it into your life? And I'm not going to just be general here, I will be specific. As a matter of fact, I'm actually working on a Discover Your Personal Mission webinar, it should be actually. So that will be coming out soon. But I will give you some key points from that I hope are really practical and doable. That's the main thing. It has to be doable. And it can be overwhelming because it's not about expecting you to drop everything you're doing. Like say, okay, I don't have a foundation to my building, so let's raise the whole building and start building. No, that's not doable and it's not practical. So we're talking about how do we do it within the framework of our lives, but it has to be important. Because rest assured, if it's not going to be a priority, it's going to go to the back burner and it'll end up being never done, because you'll say, I don't have time right now for it. So that's what we have to find is the right balance. So I'm going to focus now not on the importance of the mission statement, which I did hopefully till this point, but now what do you do and how do you define one? So let's first define, how do you define a mission statement? Based on what? How do you figure out something that's not generic, like be happy, that's unique, and as I said, doable and short. So I don't expect personally that anyone can go away from this room even with an hour or 2-3 hours and you'll be able to say this is it. What I would expect, my best expectation would be, and this is the mission of this class, is that you would have enough tools to develop it, and you get the ball rolling. And in time, it will come more crystallized. Because I can guarantee you, Google did not come up with their mission statement overnight. Someone had a dream. It was probably went through plenty of evolution and probably much money invested until they got it crystallized. No one ever just comes up and here it is, and that's that. So, I should say at this point, if I may, the shortest mission statement I've ever found is 2 words. And it's in the Torah. So it's not surprising. God knows how to focus. He put the whole thing in place in the first place. And that is the words, V'shachanti b'sachem. I will rest among you. In it, they have the 2 words as the essence of all of Judaism, or all of existence. V'asu li-migdash, build for me a sanctuary. That's what we build. And the mission of it is that V'shachanti, I shall rest among you. Now you could think it sounds so simple in this. No, but it captures everything. But that's God's mission. And that's, you can say, is the mission of the entire human race or the entire Jewish people. We need to focus on how each one of us does it. So here are the few ingredients that every mission statement must have. And actually I took this from, not from Torah sources, but from even business sources. And it's very consistent. And I'll repeat some that I said, but a few more. The first thing every mission statement has to have, it has to be unique. It can't be generic. Generic, then you're right away getting into an area where others can do it. Unique means unique to you. The second thing is, it can never be just to fill your needs. It can't be, for example, my mission is to make $1 million this year. Even though I mentioned that before. Or my mission is to learn how to play chess. Why? Because every mission you'll see has to have some use for others, not just for you. Google's mission is not just we are going to organize information. We're going to organize information that millions and billions of people are going to use. Starbucks, building good, strong communities, 1 cup at a time. So they never focus on how they're making profit. They're focusing on what service they are providing, service or product they're providing to people. It's very important because most people think it's a selfish thing. It's not. It's never. A mission statement is never selfish. Even in business. Even in for-profit businesses that are not driven by a cause, but driven by profit, they will always talk about the service and product that you provide. You'll see about the importance of that as we develop this further. Okay, so those 2 things. Unique, it has to be some type of service or product, some need you're filling. And it should be short, obviously. That's number 3, I mentioned that. Short and concise. And it should be doable. It has to be actionable. You have to know what you can do. It cannot be so highfalutin that you don't even know where to begin. Like to say, for example, even V'shachanti b'seichem is a little too abstract. God should rest among us. Okay, but what does that mean? How do you do that? Well, how do I begin? What am I supposed to do? So it has to be something that is actionable. Okay, with that said, I'm going to go now into the meat and potatoes. Is that the right word? They're both kosher for Pesach. I just want to make sure my analogies are appropriate for the time. Okay. And of the actual defining of a mission. So if you really think about it, what makes it challenging is the uniqueness. Now, I would say that you can't begin defining a mission that's unique to you if you don't know what makes you unique. So we have to go through the process of know thyself. You have to know yourself. I'm going to use myself as a kosher guinea pig, simply because it makes it a little easier. But the truth is, everyone has to ask these questions. What makes you tick? What are you good at? If, for example, someone is really good with their hands, and they're just naturally good with their hands, they're just excellent with their hands, decides that they're going to become some type of, let's say, strategist, which they may not be good at. Why? Because they like others that do that. Then you can rest assured that the mission that's going to be not fitting your skills is not going to work. Simple as that. So here, as opposed to businesses, because businesses, remember, there's not anything divine about their mission. When it comes to us, there's something very divine. Because God sent you to this world for a purpose and blessed you with particular skills. So some of us are more cerebral, some of us are more emotional. I'm just going to point out a few questions that you need to ask. Analytical. Some are very good front-end people, some are back-end. Back-end would be analysis, strategy, and so on. Front-end means a people person. Good salespeople, know people know how to present something, charismatic. And this has nothing to do with right and wrong, by the way. Everything I'm mentioning here is absolute God-given, and it's not right and wrong, and it's also not exclusive. An introvert doesn't mean that person is always an introvert. There's always some other dimension. But we're talking about your primary strengths. So if you had to list, like if someone said to you, let's say you were being interviewed for a job, tell me your 3 primary strengths. That's somewhat where I'm headed here, which is just to define as best as you can some of where your strengths are. Because your strengths are indicators to what your mission is, because God gave you these strengths because that's where your mission lies. Which it's not really a tangential point, but I should mention it right now, is remember, obviously all this is predicated on that we have a mission. And as I made the case already for the efficiency that comes from a mission. But obviously, someone says, I don't believe in God, and therefore I don't believe life has a mission, I don't believe there's design. That's another discussion which I don't want to go there right now. I would only say to a person like that, I say, yeah, but everything in your life you do is with design. Your businesses are run that way and everything. So why suddenly when it comes to you are you not working with that same approach? But I don't want to address that. I'm assuming that is the concept that we do know that we've come here for some purpose. But here's the odd thing. It would have been very nice if we came out of our mother's wombs with a little box that said, your mission is so-and-so. That would have been great. Save us a lot of heartache. Right? But clearly, that's not what happened. So you have to conclude that God wanted us to find our mission. And that's part of our mission. And maybe that's what makes it so gratifying, because when you do discover it, it's also with your effort. It wasn't just someone told you this is what you should do. So going back to so therefore, part of it is discovering. So how do you discover it? You have to say that God would never have refrained or blocked us. I'm looking for another word like that. Refrained, prevented us from finding it. So He had to give us tools. It's like almost sending someone to an island, those treasure island type of things, and say everything you need to survive is here. Now you have to find it. So the same thing I would say is with our lives. In our lives, you will find the signposts and the clues that will help you discover your mission. And the first place to look at is who you're knowing yourself, because you look at your strengths. At my point, I'll use myself as an example. I'm going to go through the whole process. It usually comes through trial and error, and you don't just come up that one day you have an epiphany. But I came to discover at some point that communication and writing and teaching is my strength. Not that I was necessarily good at it, but I saw it was a place I gravitated to. I liked it. I found it to be fulfilling. I found it to resonate with me. Had I tried other things that were not good at, I wouldn't have succeeded. As simple as that. Or would have succeeded not in any special way. So once you find that, then you clear. To me, I have no question in my mind. That's my mission to do this. Because it's my strength. And you're given that strength because it's something you have to now harness towards some good end. So the first step is knowing yourself. And I'm actually, as I said, developing like a questionnaire that will help people ask the right questions. If you like, you email me, I could send it to you. It'll help you get it going. But it's really, the point is that it's for you to find ways to answer what it is that makes you unique. So I would call that the personality part of the signposts necessary to helping identify your strengths, which will help you identify where you should be focusing. I will now say I call it a POPP exercise, POPP, which is an acronym for personality, opportunities, people, and places. I just covered the personality front. We'll talk about the other 3 right now. So personality, to sum up again, is really getting a picture, an identification. Let's see of what you're made of. As I said, I gave myself as an example. It could be many different areas. Some people are very musical and artistic. I mean, the list goes on. I'm not going to go through every personality type, obviously, because we won't have time to do that. The next thing is opportunities. None of us have the same opportunities. You have opportunities due to your life circumstances that another person doesn't have. It could be something that came your way. You met somebody and they offered you something. So your opportunities is the second place to look at. We'll call it the divine providence of your life. The third thing is to look at the people you know. The people. You have connections that others don't have. Why do you have those connections and I don't, or someone else doesn't? Why do I have certain connections that you don't have? Because that's all part of the resources given to you to fulfill your calling, your mission. And finally, there's the places. Some people born in Israel, that's where they live. Some people born in the United States. Some people this city, that city. Some people traveled. God leads the footsteps of a person. There's no accidents. If you were born somewhere and you live in a certain place, it means that that place, that space where you are, and whatever reason where you move to the next space you've been, it has something for you. It's not random. It means there's in that area something. That's why you'll find very often when people ask the Rebbe or questions like, where should I go, where should I move? It was always around the mission. If you're there and the community needs you, for example, you're a teacher, or you're a leader, or you're respected, and whatever it is that you're doing, why would you deprive your community from that? It's part of your mission. That's why you're there. You can't just pick up because you say, you know what, I want to retire on some island. There's responsibility involved. A mission is part of that responsibility. Just to use it as a basic example. And this is not a small matter. It defines decisions we make. So obviously you may have a good reason to move somewhere. You may have a good reason to go. So if that's why you need to deliberate. I'm not suggesting that wherever you are, you're stuck the rest of your life. There may be very good reason to leave. And it very well be that your mission moves on with you to the next place. That all comes down to looking at all the circumstances involved. That's why I'm saying it's not easy to answer for everyone. You have to really look at individuals. I know people, they did live for a long time in a certain place, and then they had an opportunity that came their way, another place, and it becomes obvious with a little objective research and so on that it's very likely and very possible that they actually do fulfill that mission elsewhere. I'll just give you an example of this to the extreme. Remember, my father was in the hospital. He had a mini stroke in the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur time, 1989. And I went by then. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was Erev Yom Kippur. I was summoned to come. He wanted to give me lekach, honey cake, to give my father. So I went by, and the Rebbe gave it to me. And in Yiddish, he said, to give your father this sweet honey cake, you should have a zisiyar, a sweet ear. Und Zogem, I'll say it in Yiddish, then I'll translate. Und Zogem, als wenn verendigen sein Schliches dorten, wird der Rebbe mal losen. That when he'll finish his mission in the hospital, God will free him, release him. This is how a leader thinks. So I came to the hospital, I brought it to my father. My mother started running around and doing all kinds of things, talking to the nurses, who's Jewish and who doesn't light candles and not light. And my father stopped her and said, I'm the one that's in the hospital, not you. You're just visiting me. It's my mission, not your mission. Anyway, that's an aside. If you know my mother, that's her. She's a very active person. And my father did what he did. After Yom Kippur, the Rebbe's main secretary came to see him and said, Rabbi Chadakov, he came the next day and said, the Rebbe wants to know, did you finish your mission? I mean, the lesson in this is so tremendous. Because what do you mean? He went to the hospital because of a stroke. No one goes to hospitals for fun. It was a stroke, it was no question. But still, there's no such thing as being in a place that you're just stuck. Or being in a place because you just happen to end up there, even for health reasons. There's always a deeper reason. To the point that when you finish that reason, you will be able to leave that place. Just to show you the extent of mission-oriented, this is mission-driven thinking. You don't think in terms of the moment and the symptoms. You think in terms of what is the bigger picture here. And everything has purpose. There's no such thing. Obviously, you don't go initially into places that are destructive or so on. That's not the point. We're talking about if you are there, and for whatever reason you have to be there, it's not just for the ostensible reason. There's always a more mysterious reason, which I'll talk about a bit later. But I want to go back to, so 4 things. So he said, personality, opportunities, people, places. So really what I would suggest you do, take a piece of paper, not here, not now, when you have a little time, and just make 4 columns or 4 pages, and just start filling it in. It doesn't have to be done over in 5 minutes. It can be done over time. But be consistent and start filling in this profile. You're getting a profile of yourself, basically. You'll be surprised, actually, what you find. Because as much as you know yourself, you never probably thought of yourself in that context. But what you'll start getting is a picture will emerge of your life. Your strengths and your weaknesses, for that matter, but your personality type, the people, the opportunities, and the people and places. The next step would be is try to create some threads, some connecting points, some common denominators. You may see something in your personality and your opportunity or the people and places that seems to have some connection. Again, this doesn't have to be done in any extreme way. Anything that jumps out at you. And like start trying to, after you get enough data there, some conclusions that this leads you to. Like say, you know what? This is pretty much, if I, speaking objectively, if I looked at this, someone else's profile, it seems to me it's this direction, that direction. Again, this is not going to emerge overnight. It takes time till it starts gelling. And it can take many different directions. There's no like right and wrong. It's not like multiple choice, this is right and wrong. It's really, everyone's going to end up with being a different type of profile. And what you're getting is, you're starting to think, instead of thinking, we'll call it, what's the word I want to use? Circumstantial. Instead of looking at life through circumstances, you start looking at life through mission eyes. You're not looking at the circumstances of your life, you're looking at what is the driving force behind it all. That's what you're trying to look for. Because that's the only way you can really get to discover what it is that you should be doing. And what is, I would say, the overarching mission, which is not necessarily one specific thing. As I mentioned with Google or others, you could have thousands and thousands of projects, but they all fit under the general rubric of what your mission is. Then I would add another P, just for extra P, cherry on the top, passion. It's always good. Is everything all right?
I'm looking for a sitter.
Oh, there's a sitter there. Passion. If you can identify things you're passionate about, you're going to. That's also a tremendous plus here, because passion are the things we commit to that we are passionate about are much easier to stick with, and it's also a sign. Why are you passionate about this and not about that? That's also an indicator, almost a divine indicator of where you lean toward. Now here's the formula now. So now, one more thing, and then we have our algorithm. The next thing is you have to connect it with a cause. Remember I said earlier that every company, even for profit, are never just me. It's about what need or cause. So you have to find some higher calling or higher cause that's connected to this profile that you're developing. So I'll take myself again as an example. I am a writer to some extent, okay? And I communicate. I could write and communicate about a lot of things. I could write and communicate things that actually don't even help anybody. I could write and communicate and manipulate people. Like I know a guy I met, used to be a very good therapist, and asked him, what is he doing now? He gone into marketing. He's a copywriter. So I said, how from therapy did you go to copywriting? He says, I'm doing exactly the same thing. There I was analyzing human emotions. Now I'm manipulating them. That's what he told me. I said, you know what? And then after you manipulate enough people, you can go back into therapy and heal them. Great. It's like the manufacturers of radar detectors are the same manufacturers of radars. They manufacture the radar, you manufacture a better radar detector, a better mousetrap, and then you create a better mouse. I found that, so you could do writing, you can do propaganda. There were writers that were very destructive. It doesn't tell you how to use it, but you have to add the cause. I try to use my writing to help people, to help clarify things, to help what I'm speaking about now, to help people find their mission. That means it's driven. Now here's the formula. POPP, which is personality, opportunities, plus people, plus places, plus passion, plus cause, will equal your mission. Guaranteed. I know it sounds simple, but you'll see it's not that easy to develop. Because remember, the mission is not going to be, like if you ask me what's my mission statement, obviously I better have one, right, after all this pontificating. So I will tell you, in simple English, it's using my communication and writing and teaching skills to bring the universal message of Torah as life skills that can help people discover themselves and their calling. It's really what it comes down to. And I've written down, I can make it a little fancier if you like, but it all comes back to that. It's very specific to me. This doesn't mean other people can't do it. And everything I've done since I'm 17, 18 years old, when I can't say I wrote my mission statement then, but everything I've done since then fits under this umbrella. And I've done many things. It's not one thing you do. It's not like I write one article, so teach one class. Because of this, I had to develop a really master technology, had to hire people that design and market and so on. It's not so. The mission is not just a narrow little thing. I'm writing all day sitting and writing articles. It forces you to distribute that information. Because the point of writing it if you don't reach people. So you see, but one mission becomes a whole entity. that requires a lot more skills than my own, actually. I need to bring other people on board because they can do things I can't do, and much better than I can. You write a book, you need a publisher. You need designers, you need marketers, you need distributors, you need booksellers. You can have a book that just sits on a shelf. I'm just pointing out how a mission develops like that. And it does fit my profile. I'm only using this not to tell you my mission, but to give you an example. Everyone here cannot, with effort, can absolutely develop something of the same nature. And it will not be very narrow. It will be broader than you think it is, if you follow the guidelines that I shared here. So, some people say to me, is it possible that you have one mission and then later in your life you develop another one? It's like saying, is it possible that you suddenly become a different human being? You have a mission. You may change ship. Today I am one age. I'm not the same age I was 40 years ago. So the mission does not change. What it changes is the form of how now I come for Passover and 9 days, La La Land, with my children and grandchildren. So my mission is fulfilled through eating a lot of steak and taking my kids to the grandchildren to breakfast or whatever, bringing breakfast to them, if you know what I'm saying. So at different stages in your life, you adapt your mission to that stage. So I can see someone being 90 years old and still have the same mission 20, but they just do it differently, different pace, different ways. Also, at that point, you should be experienced and have a certain veteran seasoning that you can use that. Where we are time-wise here? Huh? We can use that, use your experience to obviously fulfill your mission maybe in new forms or new fashions. So I want to conclude. Well, first of all, what time is it? So I just know where we're at. What? 12. Oh, okay, so we're 11 to 12, yeah. So I just want to conclude with one story that just for me is a very powerful story that really captures this in a beautiful way. And that is, there was a Baal Shem Tov had a colleague, a student. His name was Chaim Rappaport. Chaim Rappaport, the Baal Shem Tov sent him once on a mission to some city to do something. He finished, he came back, mission accomplished. Baal Shem Tov, for some reason, insisted he wanted to know how Rab Chaim traveled to this city, which seemed almost like inconsequential. What difference does it make whether he went this way or that way? But he insisted, so Rab Chaim started saying, he went through this town, stayed there overnight. Next night, there was nowhere to stay, so he slept at the side of the road. In the morning, he woke up, washed his hands, said his prayers, then sat down to have something to eat. There was a little brook of water on the side of the road, and he went over, took a cup, and made a bracha, a blessing, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shehakol niyeh b'dvarei, drank the water. Baal Shem Tov, you could see visibly excited, jumps up and says these words. He says, that brook of water was waiting from the beginning of time for you to come and make a blessing on that water. Now, this story to me is a very powerful story, and if you think about it, it really can change your life even. It's a life-changing story. It means we go for places and we think we go there for whatever reason. We're just passing through, sleeping over. There's no such thing. You come there, every move you make, even you make a blessing on a drink of water. And that brook of water, probably thousands, millions of people may have drunk from. But it was waiting for you. You have to do something. The water is waiting for you to make a blessing on it. I travel to many places. Sometimes I go to places where I don't think a Jew ever walked before. Not because it's a forbidden place, but because it's just, I remember once giving a talk to Sri Lankan monks. How many people have given talks to Sri Lankan monks from Sri Lanka? And I always feel this, I remember this story, it's like, when you walk in the woods, in Robert Frost's words, there's the road that most people travel on, and then there's the road less traveled on. Like a path that everybody walked on, then there's this no one's walked there. And you feel almost like a pioneer. You're treading a new ground. You're doing something that was not done before. Imagine if you had that cognizance and attitude about everything in life. There'd be no boredom. As the Baal Shem Tov also says, that everything is recreated anew. Everything is fresh, waiting for you to do something. It's so mission-driven in the sense that everything is there for you to fulfill. So if you have a 24/7 attitude like that, that's a mission-driven life. This doesn't mean that you don't have a job. It doesn't mean you can't be successful in many areas. It comes down to, however, what's the ultimate end and what the means. That's really what it is. We're the boulders, as I mentioned. What are the foundations? When you leave this world after 120 years, 180 years, Mashiach will come hopefully very shortly, and we won't have that challenge. But you want to say, you know what? I came here to this world to accomplish what I had to accomplish. I was given skills. I was given personality, opportunities, people, places, passions, and so on. And did I use them to as much as my ability to actually fulfill my mission in changing the corner of the world that I was given? That to me is like, that story captures it in such a powerful way. And one final note, just to get the ball rolling, we have the tradition in Judaism is every morning you say Moda'ani. It's a very underappreciated prayer. This I go back to the children. Moda'ani, basically, I thank you for returning my soul to me. To paraphrase it, I thank you for giving me an indispensable mission. It's a tremendous reminder every morning. And in the evening, we say, I return, b'yod chaf kedruchi, in your hands, I entrust my spirit. So I would make a suggestion, both for ourselves and for children and grandchildren. You can even begin here Pesach. Imagine every morning and every evening you tell your children, you're a gift that God sent to this world. And not just I love you, but I am here to help you fulfill that indispensable mission that Hashem, God, gave you. And always know, that's why you're here in this world. Imagine children heard this every day, from parents, from educators. It would become a given that is my life. That, again, does not take away from anything else they'll accomplish in life. But they'll have that driving force that you were sent here, you're sent, you're on a mission. You're indispensable. You have unique things that no one else but you can accomplish. And I'm here as a parent, as a grandparent, as a friend, as a whatever it is, to help you accomplish that. I guarantee you, children growing up with such a message, ongoing, it'll cause more conversation about it. People start asking, what does that mean? What does Moda'ani mean? And it's an easy thing to do. Every morning we say to our children, we love you. I love you. In the evening, we put them to sleep. So it's not like you have to add a whole. The key is the baby steps, not the big things we do. It's the consistent little steps and the constant awareness that we create in our own lives and our children's lives. So may God bless us all that we should get on that track as much as possible. If you're already there, great. There's always ways to grow and spread the word to others. And you can share this with everyone. And again, if you want to send me an email, my email is Simon @meaningfullife.com. I'm happy to send you Simon @meaningfullife.com. The website is meaningfullife.com. Very easy to access. And I'm happy to send you the questionnaires that I've created and anything that I already have developed. And you'll hear more about it as we finish that. I hope to finish it shortly. And we move from there. So may God bless you to fulfill your mission, find your missions, fulfill them, and may we all join together in this grand symphony, cosmic symphony, where each of us are both unique and indispensable and also complement each other because we all need each other as well. Good Yontif. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a little time.